I know there's a lot of talk, especially with the Mearsheimer Walt book, about the Israel lobby in the U.S., and I know a lot of people who say AIPAC pushed us to war with Iraq, AIPAC is pushing us to war with Iran, and I've heard other people like Noam Chomsky say that's not incredibly accurate. The U.S. supports Israel based on its own interests, and it's not really AIPAC pushing the U.S. to do anything. But what do you think AIPAC's role in U.S.-Israeli relations is?
Lobbies do have power. If lobbies didn't have power, then professors wouldn't be afraid to give flunking grades to students for fear that the student may shoot them. There's a gun lobby, and it's true. I sometimes would be grading and somebody would come up in a trench coat, half drunk, and I wasn't sure if he was going to pull out a gun. You know, that's because of the gun lobby. And if you go in a New York subway, there's an iron rule: never look anybody in the eyes. You know, because it's that gun lobby again. Yeah, you know. And if you're in a taxi cab, you want to have that very thick plexiglass shield between you and the back seat, because you're afraid someone's going to blow your brains out, and that's the gun lobby, you know. So we shouldn't underestimate the power of lobbies. They can inflict a lot of agony. Same thing with cigarettes, but you know that as well as I do with the tobacco lobby. And the AIPAC lobby has power. I think most of U.S. policy bearing on local Israeli issues is due to the lobby. Why does the United States allow for these settlements? Why doesn't it just say no more settlements? Now, does the U.S. have a stake in the settlements? No, it's obvious they don't. So why don't they just tell Israel, settlements out? Well, because of the lobby. Why does Israel get this fantastic amount of money each year? Okay, some of it is for their military arsenal in order to protect U.S. interests. But when you actually look at the numbers, I mean, the numbers are so ridiculous. I think Israel gets more money than our total aid to Africa over the last 200 years. It's like totally preposterous. Well, it's because of the lobby. But when it comes to major U.S. interests, like Iraq, it's obviously not the lobby. It's just ridiculous. I mean, sometimes you read these analyses and they're really from Mars. Everybody agrees, there's no dispute, that the two principal architects of the attack on Iraq were Cheney and Rumsfeld. You know, Bush was upstairs with his PlayStation 3. You know. Okay. It was Cheney and Rumsfeld. Now, say what you want about Cheney and Rumsfeld. They're not Jewish. They have no concern with Israel. They're homegrown elites concerned with American interests as they conceive them. They're not going to put Israel. Why would they put Israel ahead of them? That doesn't make any sense. None of the argument makes any sense. They say, well, these neoconservatives like Wolfowitz, Cheney, Libby, that they tricked Cheney. You know, no, you don't trick Cheney. If you want to tell me Cheney's a thug, a hoodlum, a murderer, I'll go with you there. If you want to tell me Cheney's not the kind of guy you'd want to babysit for your kids, I'll go with you there. If you want to say Cheney's not the kind of guy you would want to meet in the dark alley, you know, I'll agree with you there. I thought Wanda Sykes was absolutely correct when she said, if two cars pull up on either side of a street, one has a stranger and the other one has Cheney, she said, I'd tell my daughter, you go with the stranger. You know, she had a point there. But stupid? Trick Cheney? No. He's a very smart guy. You don't trick Dick Cheney or Donald Rumsfeld. That's just not silly. That doesn't make any sense. It's silly. And then the Wolfowitz, Feith, Libby, they go back with Cheney and Rumsfeld, they go back like 40 years if you look at the record. A lot of them worked together in the Gerald Ford administration. So Cheney, Rumsfeld, they know these people, the Wolfowitz, the Libby, the Feith. They know them like the back of their hands. So now we're told that they were working, Wolfowitz, Wolfowitz, Libby, Feith, they were working for Israel. But we're also told they weren't moles. It wasn't like they were spies. They were openly working for Israel. Okay? It's not like moles. They were openly working for Israel. So then you ask yourself a question. If they were openly working for Israel, and Cheney and Rumsfeld knew them for 30 years, why would they staff the most critical places in their bureaucracies? In Cheney's office, in the Defense Department, why would they staff the most critical places in their bureaucracies, in their administrations, with agents of Israel? Does that make any sense? If they were agents of Israel and we're told they were open agents, and Cheney and Rumsfeld have known them for decades, why would they put them in the most critical places in their bureaucracies? That's just, it doesn't make any sense in a moment's reflection.
Thing is too is a lot of people say that, oh, these Jewish politicians in Washington are dually loyal, how we say, and they say that, you know, they are representing Israel's interests, not the interests of the U.S., and Israel's interests go against the interests of the U.S., and that's but the U.S. continues to support it.
Does anyone say that Barack Obama's first loyalty is to Kenya because his father is Kenyan? Or he has a special loyalty to Hawaii over New York? No, when these people get into office and they get into power, they know who put them there, and they've long ago left behind their roots. These Jewish neoconservatives, they like power. And they know where their power derives from. Their power derives from here. If Israel becomes stronger, they don't become stronger. If the U.S. is stronger, they become stronger. Their power is here. And that's when they're interested in power. They don't care about their roots. I mean, it's the funny thing is, it's to credit them with a kind of idealism which totally contradicts who they are as people. Because you're saying they're actually going to put their family and their people ahead of power and privilege. But their whole lives are about the pursuit of power and privilege. And they would, sooner throw their mother or father into a crematorium than give up any of their power and privilege. That's the way these people are. They're utterly ruthless. That's the nature of the game. They're completely ruthless.
Or they say that, that they're so hardcore Zionist to say it, and they say that they truly believe all this,
They're not hardcore anything. They're hardcore pursuit of power and hardcore pursuit of privilege. That's what they're hardcore.
If international law was actually enforced in these cases, how many of Israel's prime ministers do you think would be considered war criminals?
First of all, it's not a complicated question. The only one, I was recently in Gaza, and I was meeting with Hamas officials, and they were asking me about Netanyahu. And I said, actually, Netanyahu is the only one of them who's not a war criminal. His record in office is just really not that bad. You go through all of them, they were all involved in murderous wars or expulsions. Rabin, Perez, Barak. The only one whose record is reasonably clean, I'm sorry to say, but it's true, it's Netanyahu. I mean, what did he ever really do? he talked a lot, you know, shouted and screamed, but it was all just theater. Settlement expansion was greater under Ehud Barak, the peace candidate, than it was under Netanyahu. Netanyahu carried out the troop with redeployments that he was expected to from Hebron. He wasn't that bad. The others that have a serious time defending themselves against the charge, frankly, they couldn't defend themselves in a court of law against the charge of war crimes.